Here, women live in a true hell. Behind the iron and concrete bars, overcrowding, violence, deprivation, and abuse are just some of the horrors faced daily by female inmates in these institutions. Now, discover some of the toughest women's prisons in the world. Join us, and let's dive in. Number 14. Pollsmoor Prison. In Cape Town, South Africa, Pollsmoor Prison is a completely brutal penitentiary system. Known for housing Nelson Mandela during part of his long sentence, the women's wing of Pollsmoor is a Kafkaesque nightmare of overcrowding and deprivation. With an occupancy rate 3 times its official capacity, Pollsmoor cells are human anthills. Up to 70 women are crammed into spaces designed for a maximum of 30, sleeping in shifts on the filthy floor. The air is thick and suffocating, laden with the stench of unwashed bodies and accumulated waste. The sanitary infrastructure is a humanitarian disaster. Clogged toilets overflow with feces and urine, creating an environment ripe for disease outbreaks. Tuberculosis is common, spreading quickly in the cell's stale atmosphere. Medical care is nearly non-existent, with just one doctor to care for hundreds of inmates. Incarcerated mothers face the additional trauma of being separated from their babies after just 3 months. The children are sent to overcrowded shelters or distant relatives, often permanently cutting the maternal bond. The trauma of this forced separation leaves deep scars on both mothers and children. Number 13. Lowell Prison. The largest female prison complex in the United States, Lowell houses over 2,600 women under conditions that defy imagination. Overcrowding turns inmates' lives into a claustrophobic nightmare. Dormitories designed for 50 people hold over 100, with women sleeping in makeshift bunk beds or on the floor. The suffocating Florida heat, combined with inadequate air conditioning, creates an almost uninhabitable environment. Fights between inmates are frequent, often instigated by corrupt guards betting on the confrontations. Inmates are forced to work long hours in dangerous conditions, often without proper protective equipment. Accidents and injuries are common, with victims receiving minimal medical treatment before being forced back to work. I have a question for you. First, I'd like to tell you that it's possible to keep up with the biggest curiosities of our world every day. But for that, you need to be subscribed to our channel. So have you subscribed yet? If not, take the opportunity to subscribe now. Now that you've done that, let's go. Number 12. HMP Holloway Prison. For over 150 years, HMP Holloway Prison stood as a grim symbol of the British penal system. Its Victorian walls housed some of the country's most famous female criminals, as well as political prisoners and suffragettes in the early 20th century. But behind the historic facade lay a reality of abuse and neglect that persisted until its closure in 2016. Originally built to house both men and women, Holloway became an all-female facility in 1902. Its labyrinthine architecture with narrow corridors and tiny cells reflected an outdated and punitive vision of rehabilitation. Even after successive reforms, the claustrophobic and oppressive environment remained. Chronic overcrowding turned inmates' lives into a daily nightmare. Cells designed for one person held 3 or 4, with mattresses scattered on the floor. Privacy was non-existent, with makeshift toilets in full view. The constant noise and lack of adequate ventilation created a suffocating atmosphere. Holloway became infamously known for its high rates of inmate suicides. The lack of adequate psychological support left women with mental health issues at the mercy of their own demons. Abuses by staff were routine, and reports of such cases were frequent. A culture of impunity allowed corrupt guards to traffic illicit substances and cell phones into the prison, fueling a subculture of addiction and violence. Number 11. Grand Valley Institution. Hidden among quiet residential neighborhoods, Grand Valley Institution for Women is a monument to the hypocrisy of the Canadian prison system. Its modern and well-maintained facilities give a false sense of humanity. But behind its concrete walls lies a grim reality for inmates serving long sentences in this frozen purgatory. Opened in 1997 as the country's only federal women's prison, Grand Valley is divided into maximum and minimum security sectors. However, even low-risk prisoners face a daily life marked by psychological deprivations and isolation. Contact with the outside world is severely restricted, with limited visits and no internet access. In the maximum security wings, isolation reaches inhumane levels. Inmates spend 23 hours a day locked in individual cells, allowed only 1 hour of recreation in tiny yards surrounded by barbed wire. Prolonged confinement takes a heavy toll on the prisoner's mental health, pushing many to the brink of insanity. Constant tension often erupts into violent fights during the rare moments of interaction. Gangs control the internal trafficking of substances and contraband items, subjecting the most vulnerable inmates to a regime of terror. Reports of abuse by guards are frequent, but rarely thoroughly investigated. The most emblematic case of Grand Valley's cruelty is that of Ashley Smith, a 19-year-old who took her own life in solitary confinement while guards stood by and watched without intervening. Number 10. Julia Tutwiler Prison. In the heart of the American South, a monument to female suffering stands tall. Julia Tutwiler Prison, nicknamed the Dungeon of Despair, is a nightmare for the more than 900 inmates crammed into cells designed for just 400. Built in 1942 to separate dangerous criminals from minor offenders, Tutwiler has become synonymous with systematic abuses and constitutional violations. The hallways echo with muffled cries as corrupt guards trade basic items like toilet paper for intimate favors. Violence among inmates is endemic, with bloody fights over scraps of food or a bar of soap. Access to medical care is practically non-existent. Women with serious illnesses languish without proper treatment, while others are thrown into filthy solitary cells for bad behavior, often simply for reporting abuse. Privacy is a non-existent luxury. Showers and toilets are exposed to the eyes of male guards, who do not hesitate to make lewd comments. Reports of sexual assaults by men are so common that they have become part of Tutwiler's grim routine. Inmates are forced to trade sexual favors for protection or basic hygiene products. Number 9. Johannesburg Central Women's Prison. The Johannesburg Central Women's Prison, locally known as Sun City, hides a shocking reality behind its gray walls. Chronic overcrowding forces hundreds of women to share spaces designed for far fewer. Diseases spread quickly in the unsanitary environment, worsened by the lack of adequate medical care. Violence is a constant presence, with guards often turning a blind eye or actively participating in corruption schemes. Even high-profile inmates are not spared from the inhumane treatment. The absence of effective rehabilitation programs perpetuates a vicious cycle of crime. Many women leave Sun City more hardened and desperate than when they entered, with little real hope of reintegrating into society. Number 8. Chongjin Concentration Camp. In the remote confines of isolated North Korea, Chongjin Concentration Camp stands out as one of the most horrific places on Earth. Officially denied by the Pyongyang regime, this prison complex primarily houses political dissidents and their families, subjected to conditions beyond imagination. Surrounded by 4-meter-high walls and electrified barbed wire, Chongjin is a self-sufficient prison city. Shoe, rubber, and textile factories operate continuously, powered by the slave labor of prisoners. Men, women, and even children are forced to meet absurd production quotas, working up to 18 hours a day. Overcrowding reaches unimaginable levels. Ex-prisoner reports describe dormitories where 300 people are crammed into 30 square meters. A single bathroom serves hundreds of inmates who go months without access to showers. Hygiene is non-existent, facilitating the spread of diseases. Hunger is a constant companion. Daily rations are limited to 100 grams of thin corn soup, forcing prisoners to hunt rats and insects to survive. Pregnant women are subjected to forced abortions, or, if the pregnancy is discovered too late, their babies die shortly after birth. Punishments for minor infractions are brutal. Raw violence and other severe forms of punishment are routine in this place. Number 7. La Mesa Prison. On the border between Mexico and the United States, La Mesa Prison in Tijuana stands out as a bizarre microcosm of the violence and corruption plaguing the country. Known for frequent riots and control exercised by drug cartels, La Mesa is a nightmare for the women forced to survive within its walls. Chronic overcrowding turns the lives of inmates into a daily struggle for survival. Cells designed for 4 people house up to 20, with women sleeping in shifts on the dirty floor. The sanitation infrastructure is precarious, with sewage leaking through the corridors and frequent outbreaks of disease. Internal prison control is disputed by cartel-linked factions. Basic items such as food, drinking water, and medicine are sold at extortionate prices. Family visits only happen through bribery. Access to medical care is practically non-existent, with pregnant women giving birth in inhumane conditions. Paradoxically, La Mesa is also known for its bizarre self-management system. In the 1970s, faced with the state's inability to provide basic necessities, the prisoners themselves were authorized to build their homes and establish small businesses. This created a strange internal economy where wealthier inmates live in relative comfort while the poorer ones languish in misery. Number 6. HMP Style Prison. In the Green Hills of Cheshire, HMP Style Prison is quite grim. Built in 1898 as an orphanage for poor children in Manchester, the institution was converted into a women's prison in 1962. Its outdated, labyrinthine architecture reflects an obsolete, punitive vision of rehabilitation. With an official capacity of 486 inmates, Style frequently operates far beyond its limits. The tiny cells, designed for a single occupant, house 2 or 3 women. Privacy is non-existent, with improvised bathrooms in full view of everyone. The constant noise and poor ventilation create a claustrophobic and oppressive atmosphere. Between 2001 and 2021, 12 suspicious incidents were recorded in the institution, many related to drug abuse and staff negligence. The treatment of pregnant inmates is particularly cruel. In 2020, a prisoner in labor had to wait hours for medical care because the prison's internal radio system was down. Cases like this expose the staff's complete lack of preparedness to handle basic emergencies. Number 5. Parapana Agrahara Central Prison. Parapana Agrahara Central Prison, designed for 2,200 inmates, houses more than double its capacity in conditions that defy human dignity. Overcrowding reaches unimaginable levels. Cells designed for 4 people house up to 10. With prisoners sleeping in shifts on the filthy floor. The lack of adequate ventilation, combined with oppressive heat, turns the dormitories into human ovens where diseases spread like wildfire. Access to basic hygiene items is a luxury for a few. Women share a single bathroom among dozens, often without running water or soap. Skin diseases and infections are rampant, worsened by the lack of adequate medical care. Corruption infiltrates every level of the prison administration. Guards sell everything from food and medicine to privileges like showers or family visits. But the most shocking aspect of Parapana Agrahara is the systematic intimate exploitation of inmates. Investigations have revealed a perverse scheme where guards rented female prisoners to male inmates. Victims who dared to report it were punished with isolation or transferred to even worse units. Number 4. Silverwater Women's Correctional Center. In this steel dungeon, the rigor starts right at the entrance. Visitors undergo a thorough search, including retina and fingerprint scans. Cell phones are strictly prohibited. Any connection to the outside world is seen as a threat. Inside the gates, stories of shattered lives pile up. Many inmates arrived as teenagers, dragged into crime by substance addictions. Others saw their mothers and grandmothers pass through the same place, perpetuating a hellish cycle of marginalization. Daily life is marked by a rigid and dehumanizing routine. Overcrowded cells, timed showers, tasteless meals. The smallest infraction results in severe punishment. Solitary confinement in tiny cells for days or weeks is common. Despite offering some rehabilitation programs, Silverwater is known for its oppressive atmosphere. Number 3. Changi Women's Prison. In Singapore, Changi Women's Prison stands as a living testament to institutionalized brutality. Built in 1936 during the colonial era, this concrete and steel fortress has become synonymous with relentless punishment and inhumane conditions. Upon entering Changi's gates, inmates essentially step into another world. Tiny cells resembling shoeboxes house women convicted of a myriad of crimes. From simple theft to violent attacks, they all share the same fate, an existence ruled by fear and absolute deprivation. Life in the prison is a survival exercise. The infamous whipping punishment, a colonial remnant that refuses to die, is alarmingly common. The screams of the punished echo through the halls, serving as a constant reminder of the cost of disobedience. Solitary confinement, true concrete black holes, is used as a tool to break the spirit of the most defiant. Days, weeks, sometimes months of total darkness leave deep psychological scars, often irreversible. Sanitary conditions border on the unbelievable. Diseases spread like wildfires, thriving in the unsanitary environment. Access to medical care when available is scarce and insufficient, pushing many inmates to critical health situations. Number 2. Indiana Women's Prison. The Indiana Women's Prison, opened in 1873, bears the burden of being the first facility in the country dedicated exclusively to female confinement. However, its legacy is marred by decades of systematic abuse and blatant neglect. The case of Paula Cooper echoes through the halls as one of the darkest examples of the cruelty that permeates the prison. Sentenced as a teenager, Cooper faced not only the justice system, but also the perversity of her supposed guardians. Abused by multiple staff members, her story exposed the culture of impunity that reigned within the prison's walls. Only in the 1990s, with administrative changes, did a glimmer of hope emerge. Rehabilitation programs were implemented, offering a faint light at the end of the tunnel for inmates. However, for many, the deep-seated trauma is a constant shadow, hard to shake off. Number 1. Florence McClure. In the arid plains of Nevada, the Florence McClure Correctional Center is the state's only women's prison. Overcrowding has reached alarming levels, forcing women to share spaces barely fit for small animals. Many are forced to sleep on concrete floors, exposed to the desert's brutal temperature fluctuations. In the summer, the cells turn into ovens, testing the limits of human endurance. Violence permeates every inch of the complex. Fights between inmates are as common as the sunrise, often ignored by indifferent or overworked guards. Many women leave Florence McClure in worse condition than when they entered, stripped of any prospects for reintegration into society. Now I want to know from you, which of these prisons shocked you the most? Tell me down in the comments. And don't forget to click on the video that's popping up on the screen right now. I picked it especially for you. Well, that's it, and see you next time, Curious One.